Wuthering Waves had an undeniably rough launch, and not just like a few bugs either, though there were plenty of those. I'm talking about stuff like how they had to give us a 5-star character selector as compensation, all because of mistranslations which made a weapon flat out lie about what it did. But you know what? A lot has changed since then. The third major region on the horizon, new characters, story, and mechanics are incoming, on top of the many improvements we already have in the game. So, is Wuthering Waves worth returning to, especially for someone who gave the game an initial chance, only to quit? Let's do a comprehensive dive of the game, where I'll tell you both the goods and the bads that have either changed or remained the same since launch. Oh, and I'm going to be brutally honest as I do it. Our first topic, gameplay. The game still fundamentally follows traditionally rotation-based gameplay, where you generally want to use your character enough to fill up their concerto meter, then swap to the next character. While quick swapping is a thing, most of the player base doesn't actually interact with it, so it's more like a nice plus if you enjoy high-octane gameplay than anything. Where Kuro has made major improvements regarding combat though, is within the character kits. 2.0 kits have much better flow than their 1.0 counterparts. Let's take Liao and Augusta for example. As a main DPS, Liao suffers from his long animations, causing him to either face tank many enemy mechanics, or wait out boss attack patterns before retaliating, hurting both flow and DPS. Meanwhile, Augusta, who was released in patch 2.6, not only deals more damage than Liao, she also gains a consistent shielding effect that helps her shrug off enemy hits. Oh, and she has a time stop mechanic. For being honest, it's not as broken as it sounds. This acts more like an interactive cutscene for her ultimate than anything, but you can aura farm the bosses while walking menacingly, so that's cool. As a whole, newer kits not only have better animations than the older ones, but they also just straight up have more options. This is because 1.0 characters were designed with meaningful downsides in their kit. Chun-Li, for example, is basically the worst dodge counter known to man. Meanwhile, Cartetia just straight up pauses bosses. I've soloed entire holograms just using her dodge counter alone. Some people will argue that the newer kits having basically no downside makes for less interesting decisions while fighting. Whether or not you prefer to have characters that are more well-rounded like the newer releases, or you want characters that have meaningful flaws like the 1.0 kits, that's for you to decide. I'm just the messenger, and the message I'm sending you right now is that you should subscribe to my channel. They've also been adding more open world mobility to character kits. Yuno can fly, Phoebe has a long aerial dash, and Shorekeeper turns into a fast butterfly. I wouldn't have normally brought this up with 1.0 now having flight, which would make most of these obsolete, but in the new 3.0 region Lahai Roy, flight won't exist. We'll talk about 3.0 a little bit later though. I don't think you can talk about improvements Wuthering Waves has made in the last year without talking about their graphics. It's easily the biggest thing anyone glazes about the game. I mean, let's compare GN's ultimate to some of the new quality animations. Everyone knows Cartetia's ult is crazy, so here's a showcase of one of the upcoming units in 3.0, Morning.
Authorizing maximum output.
Honestly, I wasn't planning on pulling her originally, but her animations are kind of crazy, no? I'm kind of tempted. This quality isn't exclusive to character kits either, and a huge step up over 1.0. The 2.0 region looks absolutely lovely. There are random spots on the map I will travel to and showcase in the background as I yap on stream, just like this random whale constellation. Also, for some reason they put a huge focus on grass effects. Not exactly sure why, but outside of nuking my FPS, it's paying off. This insane graphical quality also translates into the story, where they've made leaps and bounds since 1.0. Actually, let's talk about the story. I'm going to be pretty nuanced here, as I have mixed feelings regarding it. Most people played on launch considered the Wuthering Waves 1.0 story to be, well, bad, myself included. Regardless of my feelings about the story, it's undeniable its current quality is higher than it used to be. The biggest strong suit Wuthering Waves has for its story is its presentation, where it's at the top if not the best in the gacha industry. The only real contender in my eyes is Arknight's Enfield, but we'll see if it's able to keep up its story presentation after 1.0 launches. The graphics in the fight scenes are extremely well done. They're easily the most memorable parts of the story, and for a good reason. They're just that damn good. This is the part where I start getting critical though. Despite having improved, the story and character writing just isn't as good as the other games in the genre. Wuthering Waves still suffers from gacha story syndrome, where a large majority of their characters only really exist for their banner patch, then proceed to dip out. As I've been playing other gachas, I've been noticing just how much having character arcs develop over the course of multiple months really helps them feel not only more interesting, but also makes their characterization and struggles feel more meaningful. I have another complaint about the characterization for Wuwa as well. Because the game is so centered around Rover and their experience, other characters in the story rarely have the opportunity to interact with each other. When they do interact with each other, it's usually for one-off quips or having their trope clash against another trope. The game is desperately lacking in those interpersonal dynamics that make a character feel more alive. Romantic interest in Rover has also increased since the beginning of the game. At the start, it was really only Inlin who seemed remotely interested in Rover. Now it's Shorekeeper, Yuno, Chisa, Camellia, Carlotta, and Cartetia, if not more. If you're into waifus, I guess that's a plus. If you're not, just know that it's more prevalent now than it was at launch. I'm not here to tell you what to or what not to like, so make your own judgment there. I should mention just how much quality of life Wuthering Waves has experienced since launch. I think it's one of the biggest advantages Wuthering Waves has over the competition currently, and there's just so much they've added. Since launch, we obtained access to Flight in 1.0, Echo loadouts, auto-crafting for skill enhancer, in-game character resetting when we start a stack above AoE Echo absorption. Basically, if you can think of it, they added it. Well, outside of letting you swap inside of tower before you actually start the fight, not sure exactly why they copied that from Genshin or why it's still in the game. Gearing RNG still exists for Echoes, but there are noticeable improvements about the system that I want to point out. They've added a main stat selector, allowing you to change the main stat of any unenhanced Echo. This is great to lower your time spent grinding for these in the open world, and they give you a lot as well. I'm talking like veterans have hundreds of these saves. Wish I could say the same, but my Echo RNG is notoriously godforsaken. They've also made enhancing Echoes easier by allowing the Echoes to be leveled and tuned at the same time, saving you extra clicks. There's also a new method of farming certain new Echo sets called Nightmare Nest, where you fight a large group of Echoes at the same time. That way you don't have to roam around the map to get sets. They're capped at 36 kills per day, so you can just add them to your daily routine if you have one. They're pretty decent improvements, but they still don't fix the fundamental aspect of gearing being RNG. I'm pretty neutral on that point personally, but it is something worth considering. Before we talk about free-to-play friendliness, I need to address the elephant in the room. I can't make a should you come back to Wuthering Waves video without mentioning the worst aspect of the game, the community. It's no secret online that the Wuthering Waves community is extremely toxic, with vitriol toward basically every other game, especially Genshin Impact, at least in the West. As a content creator, I have a hard time separating myself from that aspect of the game, as everything I do is in service of and interacts with the community. For every single other gacha game I have played, I've had multiple Wuthering Waves players come into my chat and constantly trash on the game. It happened with Genshin Impact, it happened with Honkai Star Rail, happened with Zenless Zone Zero, and it happened with Arknight's Enfield. That's not even a Hoyo game! If you're able to engage with the game without interacting with those aspects of the community, it's probably for the best, and honestly, I envy you. I'm just warning you though, it's not everyone, but it's pretty damn close. With that said, it's time for the gacha community's favorite topic, free-to-play friendliness. I'll just straight up say that out of all the mainstream gacha games, Wuthering Waves is the most free-to-play friendly, and that's not really up for debate. While power creep amongst the roster is undeniable, with our current strongest character Zani being able to do double the DPS of some of the 1.x characters, the sheer amount of premium currency, aka Astrite, that you obtain in the game is more than enough to own a large portion of the roster. On top of also having a lower pity and a higher base rate than other mainstream gacha games, the weapon banner is also a guarantee rather than a 50-50. I should caveat here that both sequences and weapons are increasing in power, especially compared to the 1.0 days. But in its current state of the game, no character needs sequences to clear endgame content, and you have the option of buying them for corals regardless, making them more easily obtained. You also can't really talk about free-to-play friendliness without mentioning the endgame modes. As it stands, we have two of them. Hour of Adversity is largely the same as when it launched, with a slight exception. They've added two more noticeably harder floors to Middle Tower. They've also added a new game mode called Whimpering Wastes, an AoE-based game mode where you try to kill as many waves of mobs as possible to earn points. I'd argue that both of these game modes are way too easy in their current state, so in that regard, Wuthering Waves is actually really free-to-play friendly there. Though I don't personally consider that a good thing, as I want an actual challenge at endgame, not just the currency collector. As it stands, the two modes feel like I just show up, collect my Astrite, and then call it a day. I will say that they are adding a new endgame mode in 3.0. We don't know too much about it, but hopefully that shakes things up. Speaking of 3.0, I haven't talked about it much yet, so let's start doing that now. While obviously we haven't gotten our hands on it just quite yet, just from what we're seeing from the teasers alone, it looks like it'll be the best patch in the game's history. One of the biggest complaints I have about Wuthering Waves currently is that the open world feels dull to actually engage with. In fact, I'd argue mechanics like flight were actually bad for the game, and were only really there as a band-aid solution so people could acquire their gambling money more easily. If you're someone who enjoys open world, I've honestly had a more fun time in both Genshin and Arknight's Enfield compared to the 1.0 and 2.0 regions. I think open world is one of Wuthering Waves' biggest weaknesses, which is kind of ironic given it's an open world game. Thanks Solon himself that is changing in 3.0 though. The bike actually looks like an interesting and fun gimmick that not only makes the open world traversal faster, but also still allows you to actually engage with the environment, which is my biggest gripe of Flight. Also, the bike has customizable music and skins. They showed off both the Persona and Sonic collab for it as well in the 3.0 livestream, and let's be honest, that's a turbo banger. The open world also seems to be receiving more interesting and unique puzzles. Hopefully, they follow the Enfield formula of actually making the open world slightly difficult. I'd prefer that to the face rolling of puzzles that we've seen in both 1.0 and 2.0, but it's hard to say what they're going to do when we've only seen the livestream so far. I'm hopeful, but I won't be surprised if I get disappointed either. If you skip to the end for a TLDR about whether or not you should return to Wuthering Waves, I'll give it to you. But that's kind of a dick move, so you should subscribe and make it an even trade. Wuthering Waves has made many improvements in its short life in the gacha scene, and every patch seems to be improving on the last. Whether or not you should return will largely depend on what aspect of the game made you quit in the first place. It'll also depend on whether or not you've changed, whether that's a major factor for you. If you're looking for a radically different experience than what you got in Wuthering Waves 1.0, you're not going to find it here. If that's what you need to return to the game, Wuthering Waves probably isn't for you. Rather than that, I would say you're getting a more quality version of that launch Wuthering Waves now. If you're someone who liked what Wuthering Waves had to offer when it first came out, and you want to experience a better, more polished version of the game, Wuthering Waves is a great game to try out. For the best summary I have, the flaws that they had at the start of the game are largely the same, but they've improved greatly on their strengths. Check out my challenge to 100% the Wuthering Waves map in 24 hours right here, or check out how I beat Wuthering Waves in 7 days right here. They're both bangers.